Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Ronan. I'm a senior instructional designer in the Teaching and Learning with Technology department. On behalf of the Rutgers University Online Learning Conference, I'm delighted to introduce Michael Steinbruck, a senior training and consultation specialist at the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. We are pleased to have him present this 15-minute interactive workshop. During the presentation, please use the live Q&A to ask any questions of the presenter. And at the end of the presentation today, there will be a short survey displayed. Any feedback you can provide is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Michael. You can start now.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to thank the Rutgers folks for putting this on. It seems like a great opportunity to share all the learning that's been happening during the pandemic. And I know that working at Rutgers, I work out in schools all over New Jersey on a project, but our center is at Rutgers. And we really relied on the teaching and, I should get the, here, let me share my screen and I'll get my thank you right. There we go. And you can see that okay? All right. So I wanted to, the teaching and learning with technology folks, especially I want to give a shout out to Joe Yankus and Karen Harris. I know Joe's going to be moving on to Montclair State. So they're very helpful for me. I do a lot of in-person training, a lot of in-person meeting facilitation and technical assistance in schools and other organizations. So making that transition fully to virtual was a little daunting, although I've had experience with conferences in different places virtually. So thank you to those folks, and thank you to Carl, who helped me out kind of getting set up, and I appreciate our host today. So you're here for converting in-person courses into live interactive virtual sessions, some tips and tricks. Some of these may be basic for you all. As it says in the description, this is really Zoom based. So I'm just gonna tell you some things that I've been doing for quite a while in different ways, fully, kind of almost a year in my work, but we also do a lot of these things in some of the other work I do. So this is really about sort of being creative and innovative and thinking about the things we typically do in person and trying to recreate them virtually. And I think what most people have found that, we're really surprised at just how well the technology is working and just with all the creativity and trying to think about how to create more engaging experiences online. Just surprised about how much is possible, because I think this is sort of my representation of sort of thinking about what we got and using it and doing it differently. And in this case, another example, which is we're sort of, if you've been doing it a long time, I've been training since really the early 90s, and you get into patterns and ruts, and sometimes you think the only thing there is kind of through that gate, but the truth is the world is wide open, so there's a lot that we can do. And the hardest part, I think, is really finding the time to do it. So when I kind of started moving into this pandemic period, I heard some other folks that, I'm close to were sort of like, oh, we really need to kind of pull back or, go basic or slow down. And I was sort of feeling the opposite. I felt like, people were going to need us to be at our best and kind of really take on the technology and do everything we can to really master it and bring more sort of deep and rich experiences online. Okay, so one of the things, I'm going to start with this. I start every workshop, I start every facilitation I do with an opening round, and it's very simple to do. So I'm going to start with an interactive exercise with you all. I'd hoped that this conference was going to be on Zoom, but it's not. So we're not going to be able to do the interactive things I would typically do, so I have to tell you about them, and hopefully you can kind of pick them up. So this question, what is one positive thing that you've discovered about teaching or training on a virtual platform? So as you've been sort of making your way through this pandemic, doing what you do, what's one positive thing that you've discovered about teaching or training? And I want you to use the discussion forum, if you wouldn't mind, just to kind of put one thing in there. It doesn't have to be your top, whatever comes to mind first. So let me just bounce over here and see if I can see the discussion forum. Gotta hide this guy. There we go. And reaching people from all over the world, absolutely. And working in a virtual, working in the disability field, what we found is that accessibility and some of the accommodations that we can manage online actually makes events, kind of more accessible and more inclusive to more people. So absolutely, people all over the world, getting responses from shy students, that can be, kind of a, you have to facilitate that, right? So some people can be I work in schools, so some people can be very web shy, and they have different experiences maybe than we have, some of the younger students that I work with. But also you can manage things to kind of do things in smaller breakouts, and we'll talk about that. So that's been really great. Wow, you guys are throwing it out there. So this is one of the greatest things about virtual events. And I would love it more if I could see your faces, and we could do a breakout on this topic. But this actually is a way to start an event where people are having a positive discussion. So that's a facilitation skill where you can kind of say, hey, this is the kind of event this is going to be. We're going to be sharing information. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be positive. We're respecting each other, that we all bring kind of knowledge and learning and expertise into this room. So it gives everybody a chance to do that. So in doing so, we've also gotten everyone to interact, right? And when we know people interact, if you want to have a more interactive and engaging class, you have to get people doing just that, every one of them, in the first couple minutes that you start. So that's really going to increase the likelihood that people are going to continue to participate. And I'll show you this real quick. Let me just get back here. So thank you. I'm not going to go through all the answers, but please use them and learn from each other. So an opening round really can, the positive conversations can change people's neurochemistry, right? So if we can kind of create something very early, we can actually facilitate the conditions of the place and the space that we're working in and training in and teaching in. So elevating oxytocin, that feel-good hormone, it elevates people's ability to communicate, collaborate, trust other people. So that, and you need to sort of reinforce that as you go through. So there's some information here on that. And the other side of that is, if you don't do that, if people are just sort of in this didactic, kind of being talked at session like this one, largely, sadly, but when we do it outside of this, we don't want to be elevating cortisol. So when people come into a space, I actually have music playing at the beginning of everything I do. So it's very easy, and it's very easy to do online. It's actually the one thing I forgot to put in this presentation, but I'll tell it to you right now, is if you're in Zoom, and many of you know this, you can go to the share screen and then go to the advanced, and then you can just put it on share computer sound, and whatever you're playing, whether it's YouTube or whatever, something you got on your computer, people can hear it on the other end clearly, and you control the volume in YouTube, and you can just have some low music until you begin. So that's a way, if you think about when you've gone into a workshop or a training in person, and you're sort of sitting there and waiting for some person to start, and it's like that awkward kind of silence, and it's actually a little bit anxiety provoking. So we want to kind of use every facilitation technique to make a more comfortable and engaging environment. So there's some things that I spoke to in this PowerPoint, and I'm happy to share it. One thing I didn't figure out how to do here. So really kind of setting the tone, you could call it behavioral priming. It's sort of like if you want to get people primed for interaction, you have to kind of set it. You got to set that tone. You also know people get involved early. They're more likely to stay involved, and it makes people more comfortable. The other thing is, I do in a lot of workshops that I do, and I do in classes that I work in, but I don't do it every single time, or facilitation. Sometimes I do it every single time. Sometimes we, over time, create a participation agreement. So it just depends on the event. But basically, it makes it a collaborative process where we recognize that this is not my presentation. This is our presentation. This is a place where, you know, I'm sharing learning, you're sharing learning, and but we're all here, so we really need to kind of come to an agreement on how we want to spend time together. So when you have a facilitation like that, you can really have people sort of share what they want to see, and it's a great way to evaluate at the end. You know, hey, did I hit all these things? Did we kind of hit the mark? So, you know, things that people say when I do that: participate, interact, be open-minded, speak one at a time, make time for discussion, put devices away if we're in person. Obviously, I don't want you to put your devices away today. Everyone has an opportunity to contribute, keep it plain language, jargon-free, and challenge ideas, but not people. So keep it respectful, and really listen to understand. So one of the other ones I always like to say is we want people to participate. As we said, this is the first bullet on this example, but I always say misery is optional. So people need to kind of use the bathroom or take care of something or get some coffee. You know, do that so that when you're with the group, you're really fully present and participating. So that's the participation agreement. And a couple of questions I use to prompt that. If, you know, I'll send people into a breakout room just for 2 minutes and then come for a quick lightning report back, which is, you know, what happened in the trainings or the classes or, you know, the events that you've been in that you really appreciated, that worked well, that were positive, made for a positive, productive, and efficient and comfortable environment. And what were the things that you would change? What didn't work and what made them unproductive? And when we fly back with that, I'll maybe be in some kind of shared screen, PowerPoint or whatever, and I'll create a quick participation agreement. And if it's a multi-module kind of training that I'm doing, I can have that available. And so that's a great way to kind of set the stage. So we do that. I do that at all levels with all age learners in schools. We have in classrooms, teachers often use something I may do as part of the work that I'm doing with them, pushing into their classrooms, and they'll make it actually their kind of classroom agreement. So in general, facilitation skills, like for me, I need to be ready, composed, relaxed. You know, music would be nice, but smile and humor, create a welcoming space, always an air of calm and comfort. I, you know, liken it to being a good waiter, no matter what's going on or how hectic or crowded this or that. You're always calm. You know, it's what you project is going to make people more comfortable. So have that unconditional positive regard, really help people listen to each other and listen to the people in your course. I'm big on plain language, easy speak, you know, jargon free, and really make for a place where people can contribute, and know that in larger groups, people won't contribute. So you really have to facilitate that to happen. And that's why breakouts are so great. So another opening exercise that we're not going to be able to, we'll do it in the discussion forum. But what I'll do in Zoom is I'll actually have people, I'll teach them how to rename themselves. And that's a helpful tip because a lot of people come on Zoom to different things I do and their kid might have used it before. There may have some other name of a family member depending on the account. So I'll have them go into the rename feature and answer a question with a one-word answer. So if I asked you, what's one word that kind of a describing word that about your character, what people like or admire or appreciate about you, what would you put? And so instead of putting it, because we're not on Zoom, instead of changing your name, why don't you go ahead and put that word for yourself in the discussion forum. And I'm just going to quick pop back over and into that view so I can see what you might say. But for me, I certainly like creative. And that's the other thing that I like to do is always participate myself in whatever activity I'm doing with whatever learners that I'm working with, whether they're adult or school-aged, whatever you have. So now we're kind of again reinforcing that, sort of hiking that oxytocin up, so getting people feeling good. All right, so let me just you guys keep on going. I see trustworthy, supermom, pragmatic, open-minded, prepared, high performer, organized, flexible, trustworthy, great words, all of them. So fantastic, fair, caring. Lovely. I'd love to hang out with you guys. All right. So, that's the one downside. of the pandemic is like just nothing will ever replace being in the same room with people, but we can do a lot of things to help with that. So that's just so you know, I'm going to kind of show you a couple things. The rename feature, on your iPad, you just sort of go up to the hamburger, what they call a hamburger, those 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your little square, your image. You're going to do a drop down. You're going to come to see rename, and it's going to, it'll pop up. Oh, there you go. And you rename it. And this, I renamed my iPad to tablet, but I was using it from another example, but I could be, kind of changing my name. And other things, people, also change that to offer their pronouns and things like that. So there's lots of ways you can use that. And then you just have them change it back, and then that their accurate name is actually in there. So it kind of gets them to do that and builds it into an exercise as well. The other thing interactively I do a lot of things, with classrooms and different things where I might want to annotate, right? So one way to do, I'm doing another session later on using the iPad with Apple Pencil and a piece of software called Procreate. But in Zoom, the annotation feature is awesome. So very simply, you sort of, you share screen, you pull up a doc, and most of you probably already know this, but you kind of go up top and a black menu bar will come up, and it looks like this, right? So now you can go there and you can click on annotate where this orange arrow is pointing. And once you click on annotate, you can then type all over this. This is a sort of a sociogram, just a graphic representation of the relationships in a person's life. Some of the things I do with students, I'll use that, and we'll have their name in the middle. And as I'm talking to them, and there may be a family member or supporter with them, we'll kind of be laying it out. And that's something that's part of my work. But I can, if I click text, if you see on the bottom bar, bottom black bar, I can create text box all over this thing. And then I can click over to draw and put it on yellow. Say I do a dark color with all the text boxes. Then I can highlight the things if I want to ask them certain questions about, a specific subgroup of those people. So there's lots of different things you can do. And that looks like, let's see, there you go. So that's the text, and this is what it would look like, when you pull it all together. And then you see the little save over here. You can print that, look just like this. You can print it as a PDF or a PNG file, so an image file or a PDF, which is pretty cool. So one of the things I like to do, so, when I work with groups, I often work as a facilitator, and I try to get tables out of the way and really kind of focus people on kind of a blank canvas, so different exercises or lessons or things like that. So, and I also do some planning with folks. So this is kind of how we do that with a shared display information. So I'm not going to get into the weeds of that, but bottom line is if people can see a whole process and they can really kind of see all the information all the time, that's really helpful. It helps people make connections they may not make. It helps people kind of get away from sort of coming at each other and rather working collaboratively on a shared vision of whatever the project they're working on, whether I'm doing in the class. And so there's some real benefits to making sure you have a shared display of information. A lot of the planning I do or that is done in schools doesn't really have that, and it really, I think, affects the climate. And so I often use PowerPoint. So I have some categories of things. People can see it at the side. I can type as we talk. I can see all their faces. Obviously I was doing this with myself, so I only have a couple there, but I could have everyone, and be able to scroll through and also make it a little bigger. So here's a little smaller. I can, kind of move it over. So you actually can see multiple slides at once, just using PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote or whatever you're using. I'm not going to get into Jamboard, but there's lots of different apps out there. Jamboard's on Google. It's free. It's an easy way to bring a whole class to kind of share things. If you're doing a collaborative conversation, people can put up their own, kind of sticky notes and information based on a question. I have this YouTube's great explanation. Some teacher did it, and he did a great job with it. So if you're interested in Jamboard, check it out. It's a great way to bring people together. The one hard part is if everybody's collaborating They can also sort of change each other's things. So you have to have that participation agreement can come in handy. Tell everybody, don't mess with other people's stuff, including the whoever the teacher is. So that's another kind of piece to that. Where are we? And so rounds. So one of the things is, we did something where you all did that one word positive attribute in the discussion. Oftentimes I'll start a class and we'll just do a lightning round of something where people can kind of share something like that. But rounds is kind of an actual facilitation technique. So there are kind of rules to it. And so I'm going to give them to you here. But essentially, you're going to go, however, and if you have too many people, you're probably not going to do it because of time, and you may use a chat or something like that. But if I can go around the screen, and I can very quickly have people do this, we want to see people sharing it. We want to see people speaking, see their faces. So I could ask people that same question. So we can go clockwise or counterclockwise, start at different times. You can do an opening round. I'm going to talk about a closing round later. You can also use rounds to really kind of help bring conversations to a close, give everybody, so if you're engaging students in conversation, it's a way for them to sort of kind of move through. Everybody has time. You have the option to pass. You can come back to people later. So it's not rocket science, but it does require both facilitation, and if you do it regularly, people get used to it, and they get used to not interrupting each other. There's a time and a place for that. But there's also time and a place for making sure everybody has an opportunity to share. And you'd be surprised if you're going to share information with a group over 5 or 6 people, the number of people who actually are going to feel comfortable sharing in a larger and larger group declines, and you get that 80-20 kind of Pareto principle thing where 20% of the people are doing 80% of the talking. Remarkably, if you say something to a group and only a couple people are doing all the talking all the time, but then you do a round, what you find is that everyone has something to say, and it's all valuable. So it's not that people who are more comfortable speaking have more to offer. Everyone has something to offer. It's just a question of personality and facilitating a way to gather the collective sort of wisdom of a group in a more effective kind of way. Rounds, breakouts, pairs, things like that. That's all something that I do very frequently. So I may break people into pairs. They'll have a conversation. They'll come back, and then we'll do a round of report back. So we'll, and sometimes we'll do small groups. 4 to 6 people is optimal in terms of people's comfort. But what we'll do is use something called World Cafe. If you go to worldcafe.com, that gives you kind of the basic ideas, but it's total flexibility in sort of how you play with that, implement it, tweak it. But essentially, people discovered a long time ago, no doubt, that one, go to conferences. A lot of the coolest stuff happens in between sessions. Sadly, we don't have that opportunity on the way a lot of conferences are run now. I actually involved some conferences that kind of let people hang out and go and do this kind of thing in between sessions, which is another topic. But ideally, if you have people, and this is used in nonprofit, corporate, education, anybody can use this style, and you can use it on Zoom. So you go put people in the breakout, you really thoughtfully kind of craft some questions or a series of building questions in order to create an event or a class where people are sharing. And you assign someone, or you ask people to have one person volunteer in the group to be the reporter/recorder, aka table host, who is just responsible for making sure everybody's an opportunity to talk, making sure you remember the question and stay on topic, and also taking down some of the key points, insights, kind of when people are sort of cross-fertilizing ideas. This is part of a larger thing called World Cafe. So if you really want to get into it, you can check it out. And it's kind of cool because people will go into these small groups, have conversations, and then they'll have a second layer, a next conversation where they'll shuffle all the groups. And the table hosts will stay where they are, and they can kind of reflect what the last table said. But then you have new people who can kind of build on it, and it kind of grows to whatever outcome you're looking to achieve. So, for the right, depending on the purpose of what you're trying to do, World Cafe is a great, tool, facilitation strategy. And but just small groups in general, you can't say enough about them. So here's some, this is, I'm not going to go over the table host, but this just gives you some things about that role. And if we did a breakout, which we're not going to for time's sake, we're at 1:25. I think I have about halfway through, and we have to leave time for questions. If we had a breakout, which I would love to be able to do, and I can tell from your answers already, you would have so much to offer. I would rather have you have a conversation and then share back. But for today, I'm going to ask you to think about this question. What do you think is your most effective tip for making online teaching and training more interactive and engaging? So what do you think is in your toolbox, in your arsenal? What is the one thing that you rely on most, you think makes the biggest difference, is most effective? And I want to go and put that into the discussion, what is it called? Let me just jump over there. Discussion forum. So, we got a Jamboard. Jamboard is in. And tablet. I'm doing a thing on, I love tablets, man. It's like, just frees you up, and the technology is advanced. It's amazing. Write ideas, sharing breakouts. Yep. Yeah, let me just go in here. I'm not used to this kind of scroll. It's flying by me. Breaking classes up in smaller pieces. Yep. Chunking things up for people. Yeah, I have a kid in high school, totally online, a Rutgers freshman. It's crazy time. Annotation stamps, so lots of different things. Yep. If you all have any links for any of these, for any Padlet, that's a great one. Padlet's a cool, especially in schools, collaborative, kind of software where students can, find different images and things like that, and sort of create. On one screen and do it collaboratively. Yeah, if you have any, if you want to throw in any URLs for any of these things, Padlet or other things, absolutely. Okay. Padlet, Kahoot, Jamboard, yep, 100%. Yeah, see, you all could teach this class. All right, cool. So let's, and let me tell you something. I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing what I know. So it's kind of validating, kind of hearing from you all. And I'm hoping to be able to steal some of your ideas for sure, because that's where I got mine. Let me just jump back over here. Keeping an eye on time, breakout. So thanks for sharing all that. Just for people who maybe aren't familiar with Zoom, and listen, I'm sharing Zoom. I work in school, so I have to work with everything. I have to work with WebEx, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, not really Skype so much these days, but the, Zoom, a couple others. All I can tell you is this is by far I prefer Zoom. So, and I remember when they were early in the pandemic, when you had the Zoom bombing going on or whatever, a lot of schools got a little skittish about that. And I've been, and obviously Zoom's done a lot of catch-up work on their security, but the product itself is just fantastic. So I've been super impressed with that. And especially now with their breakouts are already great, but now people being able to choose their own breakouts, that's a very cool facilitation feature, where you could create kind of a gallery walk of, kind of topics where people can sort of vote with their feet, as they say, and kind of go and check out things. So there's not a lot of cool and creative things you can do and create interactive events with. So you can see, you just kind of go down there, breakouts, all the rest of it. You can choose some features. If you want to assign people to rooms, you can sort of put them where you want to. If you do sort of a kind of a cafe style event, you may actually pre-select the table hosts, right? The reporters and recorders, and you can, so you can assign them and put them each one in the room, and then you can randomly assign. It takes a little longer. So if you do it automatically, they'll just go poof and that kind of thing. But once you get in there, then you can click options down here. Once you cook that, and then you can sort of decide some other things like how much time you want them to be in there, and how much, what kind of a countdown you want to give them so they know when to bring their conversations to a close. And yeah, so that's it. Not rocket science. Polls, we could do a poll here. I'm not going to go through the, do a poll because it's such a short presentation, and there's I just want to give you relevant things that you can use. But polls are great, just to kind of get people thinking, get them interactive. So we can, I like the way Zoom polls are set up. You can save them, you can import them. I'm not going to go through how to do that. Just want you to know about the functionality. So you can have them pre-loaded and just sort of boom, boom, boom. I do a number of different courses through Rutgers, so they're trainings, and so having them sort of at the ready, kind of just boom, boom, boom. It's great. It also gives you a break as a facilitator. I don't get a break today. I got to go 50 minutes, boom, 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 boom. It's not my preferred sort of way to do it, but what hopefully will get you to is some tips that allow you not to have to do that. So Zoom polls are a great little break, and people enjoy them, and you can really bring out some great things. So you can load them in here. You can see there's a save button, that kind of thing. And so we've already seen the discussion forum using On Air, this platform for conferences. Oh, and by the way, I'll mention that I do some other conference work, and there are platforms that actually use Zoom as the method for how people come together for the sessions, right? So there's a larger platform where you have an account, you can have discussion forums and all this kind of stuff. But then when you go to your schedule, you click on your course and you'll be in Zoom. So it's so you can continue with that same familiar functionality, which I like a lot. So chat, I try to, kind of use that a lot. I think, as someone who's been around a while, it's hard for me when I'm on, it's been an adjustment, right? I think probably younger folks are more used to kind of being in multiple places, but I'm like trying to be aware of what's in chat. That's why, like, when it comes to Q&A, we have some people here that's going to help me keep focused. But either way, I think chat's here to stay. And by the way, I've come to hate webinar software. Anything I can do on a webinar, I prefer to do on a Zoom meeting, just because of being able to see people, be more interactive. I think it's, I know that's not always possible, but way preferable for me. Some people like Zoom reactions. I'm just letting you know they're there. So, people, it kind of pops up and, for a certain amount of time in your window, so if people see something they, that really kind of strikes a chord, or they, they sort of are aligned with or appreciate, they can, or something else, they can kind of put that up there. And then finally, closing appreciation rounds. So we talked about rounds. One of the cool things, and we'll do it in our discussion forum, is just if there's one thing that you heard or learned from me or somebody else in the discussion forum, just one thing that you appreciated most about this kind of 50-minute quick review of facilitation tips. Whatever it is you appreciated, you'll put it in the discussion forum at the end. So don't do it right now, but I'll cue you for it. But closing appreciation rounds are great. They're great in workshops. They're great in different facilitations, meetings, planning, different things that I do, just so people can hear from each other. People fill out evaluations, but it's really powerful when people just kind of hear what worked for them. What did they appreciate, right? So the evaluations, there may be suggestions, things to improve, that kind of thing. But a quick and dirty, kind of, hey, this is what we really appreciated most. It lets you really know from the heart what you want to kind of remember to keep present and keep doing. So that is, it's 1:34. We got about 15 minutes. I would say, so I went faster than I thought. We're going to leave some time for questions and discussion, but we have, this is I saw this on a T-shirt once. I try to use it as often as I can because I love the image. But basically, I think that I work in schools, and I find that teachers get training, but there's a lot of others, case managers, different people who run meetings at different, facilitate different events, who don't get a lot of training around facilitation skills, how to make things more comfortable and engaging. And when you move things to virtual, it's that much more challenging. So, but I think, as anyone who trains, anyone who teaches, anyone who facilitates or runs, quote unquote, runs meetings, we really need to kind of learn as much as possible, up our game, take advantage of everything that's going on right now, to really kind of make for more engaging and enjoyable experiences. I've been really thrilled to, continue my learning in classrooms, where it is a challenge. It is, and I work with students with disabilities also, and that can present some other areas where I need to support differently. So, getting people engaged and comfortable and learning is really an ongoing journey. So I appreciate all that you all have shared. And I will say this, is that, like myself and all of you, when we do things like this and share information, it sort of gives us an opportunity to kind of look in the mirror and says, I'm not exactly who I thought I may have thought I was here, and realized, oh, you know what? There's a lot more to, I can be doing and may need to challenge. And, when you kind of look out the window, we can kind of see a lot further about the possibilities in terms of how we engage with each other and really support learners online. So, we can see further. There's a lot more out there, and I think our learning is going to continue to grow. So I would only ask you all to think, not to share, but just to think to yourself, what will you commit to doing in terms of sort of moving forward and learning some of these techniques. And these are just the basic ones. There's lots of other possibilities that we could be talking about, but I just wanted to make sure we get them out there. And I need to leave, about 10 minutes for Q&A. So I would just say, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And then I'm just going to jump out of here real quick and stop sharing and go here. And so, yeah, so why don't we, who's in our, what is it called? Who's in the control room? Yeah, yeah, sorry. I think I'm good. I think I'm good through content. I just wanted to make sure we had 10 minutes. We got a good 10 minutes or a little more. I'm going to ask people to put their appreciations in the discussion forum. So whatever you appreciated most about what we shared, doesn't have to be what I shared, but whatever other people kind of put out there on the discussion forum. And you may appreciate this platform. You may appreciate everything that Rutgers is doing to kind of bring this to people in a very affordable way. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just looking in the forum and looking at all. Yeah, we got some good appreciations. That's cool. All right, got your money's worth. All right. So I have to tell you, this is a pretty busy time of year for me, but when the Rutgers folks, my friend Karen reached out and I said, hey, you want to kind of share a little bit? And I was like, absolutely, because I really do appreciate the great work they do supporting the different entities at Rutgers and sort of making this adjustment. I know it's a lot on them. And I've really, I learned a ton from those folks. And I'll share some of those things in a couple of short sessions in the B round. So we're supposed to leave about 10 minutes, right, for Q&A?
There was a question in the discussion board that it didn't make it into Q&A, but I thought it's worth asking. Sue asked, Michael, do you have them change their name because of nicknames? She wanted to know your rationale for having students change their name.
Well, I have them. The thing about the name change in Zoom is that it's just kind of a different way to. Sometimes it's just a different way to do a poll, like it's just sort of you could be something, just what's your favorite color or what's your sign or what your or what's one thing you appreciate. What's one word that really represents you and your a positive characteristic like we did. We could have done that with the name change. So it's just sort of taking something that has intended for a different functionality, just being creative and use it for something different. So it's sort of, and the cool thing about it is it takes it out of chat and it puts a word to a face, right? And then, one thing I do know is that, I do a lot of training, and there's a new crew, just, every week there's some new big crew. And, oftentimes in Zoom, the names that are in there are like, your spouse or your kid was on there. Actually, I did this national Zoom call once, and I don't know, we were fooling around, but we had renamed our Zoom bomber for something because we were fooling around in our family. And I went on this call with it, and they wouldn't let me into the call. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm calling them on the phone. Why would you let me in? They said, because your name's Zoom bomber. So I had to go change my name. So anyway, but yeah, so I'm just saying that you can just remind people to make sure that they write their name as they want it to be called. And I'm big on names, so I want to know people's preferred name, and I want to pronounce their every name accurately. So that's just kind of one of those things. What else?
So we have a question here. What are your thoughts of having participants turn on cameras for live sessions?
Mm-hmm.
I've gone back and forth about this with our courses, healthcare courses for non-traditional students, and have left it optional. But this usually means everyone joins with their camera off, which makes connecting with participants and faculty more difficult.
Yeah, you reminded me of two things. So I think about this a lot, and my wife works in education. My sister is a special education teacher. There's there's a lot of anxiety out there. A lot of people have sort of webcam anxiety or whatever you want to call it. And I work in a lot of different places. I work in places that are pretty affluent. I work in places that are really people living in poverty. So when you think about, students and just people in general, that can be, kind of a big assumption on our part that you have to have your camera on. So that said, you really want the camera on, right? So what, there are ways, I'm not going to get into them now, but there are ways. I know my sister was kind of showing me some of the ways that she sort of works with students who are younger, kind of to ease into it, to sort of do a little bit of a time kind of thing, try and figure out what it is, what the concern is, how to make them comfortable. And I can tell you that one of the things is that if the space is comfortable, students will start to come around more, right? So a lot of these facilitation techniques can really kind of make for a space where a student may be more willing to turn on their camera. I see it all the time in the classroom where, I'm kind of new to the classroom. I'm coming into another, to a teacher's classroom and doing some things. And, just keeping it light, keeping it fun, and doing some things that, that are, and making sure you start with, positive activities, even if some of the other things are going to be, kind of a little deeper and more challenging to kind of work through and talk about. All of a sudden you'll see like somebody whose camera's off or pointed in a different direction. All of a sudden, they're there, right? And you're engaging. And so it's all I think a process. The other thing is, but the thing is, like, if I'm working with professionals and doing training there, I expect, the video to be on. We need to, if I was doing a training, we'd all be in the same room, right? It's a little trickier with students in different situations, but there you go. One other tip I will say is this: when I'm doing something on Zoom, the first thing I do is ask people to unmute. So everybody, they have control over the mute. I have them all on mute, and I ask them, "How y'all doing today?" and they're immediate. I tell you, as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a teacher, whatever, hearing that group just speak together, right, brings back to the in-person. I hate going in and having people on mute, and especially if video, cameras are turned off. It just sucks the oxygen out of the room. You gotta, we're human beings. We have to connect. We need to let go of the formality and just make for a comfortable environment. So that's my thing.
We have more questions.
Sure.
What would you say is a tip or trick to address the feelings of having a lot of content and wanting to make class interactive? So it's the content, the content concern.
So the challenge of kind of getting through required content and at the same time, yeah, wanting to be interactive. Yeah, it's sort of like, here's the thing. I would have actually liked to have done a breakout in this workshop, but I have 50 minutes and it's a new platform, not just for me, but for our friends in the control room, right? So then it was a question, do we really want to, so I had to weigh it. That said, any chance for any kind of interactive activity, especially, when I'm in person, it's anything that can get people off their feet too and moving around and doing things on the walls. So, that's, these days it's, it's tricky because I look at my own kids, they're in their rooms all day, on computers. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I know the demands, in terms of the requirements for what has to happen in classrooms, especially, if you're talking about at whatever level. But, I think the part of what I try to do is try and find interactive ways to get required things done. It's sort of like that shopping cart, right? We know we have the shopping cart, we have to have the shopping cart, but, if we just tilt it over and cook some steaks or veggie burgers on it, it's just doing things in a different way. So that may not be helpful to you. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
We have a question. Any suggestions for design or any software for quiz show type of format as a fun activity?
For a quiz show?
A tool like, I imagine, I'm thinking of the Jeopardy approach.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should mention it. Now, actual quizzes, we have, I use, this isn't fun, but I use Qualtrics, which I think is an awesome, kind of tool for developing, pre and post assessments and evaluations and things like that. And so we'll use that because it just looks better. It's just easier, it's friendlier, that kind of thing. I do a lot of things with, I didn't think to mention it in this workshop, but I do a lot of things with Google Forms. I used to do some things where students would bring things home for their parents to share back, that kind of thing. That's the thing, the pandemic changes. Like Google Forms is way better than like somebody sending a Word doc on an email when people may well not even have Word so you may not even hear of it. Google Forms or Qualtrics, things like that. All you need is a phone. You can respond and contribute and that kind of thing. There's something else I'm forgetting too. Remind me of the question.
Any suggestions for software? I did type that Kahoot is kind of a fun way of getting that gamifying.
Oh, right. Yeah. And this is something you probably don't want to do it this way, but I've done it a number of different times in my career. I've created Jeopardy kind of things on just PowerPoint, because you can animate PowerPoint. I'm sure there are far better apps to do this in these days, but I love Jeopardy's just fun. It's a great way to, kind of have those sort of quiz show type things to really kind of make learning more fun.
In the last 2 minutes, we did have questions on just to demo show your slide where you showed how to use the annotations in Zoom.
Yeah, sure. And I can, let me just put if you just want to email me, I will send you.
This will also be recorded. So I imagine that people will be able to get access to your video.
Do I get a profit sharing? There we go. All right. So so it's going to be recorded. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to send you a copy of these slides. And I don't know. I haven't seen Kahoot a lot of things that I use are Canvas based. So Canvas is the learning management system that Rutgers, one of them, the primary one that Rutgers uses, and it's amazing. Zoom's integrated. Qualtrics can integrate, Kaltura for recording sessions. I'm going to do a session on that, and PlayPosit for making interactive. Kaltura and PlayPosit are awesome, so I highly recommend. I mean, I like them, but so a lot of things like that. Flipgrid, using Flipgrid. I've definitely used that. I think one of the things you just got to ask yourself is just how many things are you going to use? Because one of the things that I've found is that there's so many cool things out there, you just can overload people. We've done that, I think, in conferences. We even had